Welcome to Shoot Me Straight. Dave Fields, Eddie Gallagher. We have a friend of ours, Ben Paulding. He reached out to us on social media and shared a trailer clip of the movie that he is getting produced. And I purposely, again, said, no, don't tell me anything about it. I really want to just hear a lot about this on the podcast, but it's around trafficking kids. And the movie, we will link to it, possibly even put it in some clips and some reels on this trailer, but it's really, really good trailer, very intriguing, and I'm excited to learn a lot more about it. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you guys for having me, man. Glad to be here.
He flew in from
38.
Yeah. How long was your flight yesterday? It's like,
the flight wasn't that long. It was like 3 hours and then 9 hours at the airport and then 2 hours.
That sounds about right flying nowadays. Yeah. Did you have any delays?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. 3 delays.
I think, dude, you cannot go take a flight nowadays without getting delayed or getting stuck somewhere.
Yeah. Just expect it.
Thank Pete Buttigieg for that.
I used to have, a problem with, those preachers with the jets, their own personal jets. But now it kind of makes sense, man. They're geniuses.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They don't need to wait through any of that.
Yeah.
When the Lord calls, man.
You got to sit back there and coach, like crammed up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the Greyhound bus in the sky.
For real.
Dude,
Yeah, well,
so you made it. You're here.
We're here.
Got a little bit of sleep.
Got a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Dude, so give us some background on you. Me and Eddie literally know very little purposely around your background.
Yeah, so, I grew up in Northern California, part of a, very artistic family. My dad's been a musician for a long time, several records. I grew up, since I was 5 in acting, and then commercials and music videos. And I started getting into writing and producing, short stories with my brother after he started getting into cinematography. And so we started working on short films and, screened a couple in our town. Local theater just packed out some theaters. And, people were responding really well to, kind of what we were putting together and doing. And then we started getting in contact with some bigger producers and working and developing scripts. And so prior to COVID, we were getting ready to do actually one about the fires in Santa Rosa, the one that wiped out Coffee Park with 100,000 people homeless overnight. And
what year was that?
That was 2017 when that fire took place.
That's right. Yeah. I remember that, yeah.
And so we after that took place, 2018, 2019, we were getting ready to do this IMAX film. Both documentary with real footage of IMAX footage of fires, and then narrative kind of mixed in with the story of what took place that particular occasion, and then obviously COVID hit, and big budget like that wasn't gonna take place at that point, and it was during that time in COVID where everyone was kind of just forced to sit back and just look at what was going on in the world and a lot more time to think. And I had been seeing these articles online and these different stories on kids being found in trailers, 30 kids in Georgia or something like that, or and then LA, I saw 50 kids in a trailer, and I was like, man, this is just not getting the coverage that you'd think you would be getting, with these rescues taking place. What is this? And then I started diving into how this is a market. This is actually an industry that's taking place in America, and it started kind of making sense to me when you always see those posters, why is there so many missing kids? Where are these kids going? Is it just some perverts, just a couple perverts, and that's what's taking place? And I started to kind of realize that this is a widespread, prevalent issue. And then, even then I still didn't really feel called to want to get involved. I just thought, that's kind of bad. That's kind of interesting. But on August 6th, 2020, I had this dream one night, and I was standing at the gate of this industrial warehouse on this desolate road and this security gated fence. And it was just super vivid, simple dream. I'm looking into the blackout windows of this warehouse, and I'm just sensing like this haunting kind of like feeling like there's children in there, like there's something going on more than meets the eye in this place. This guy pulls up in a vehicle. He's like, asks me, what am I doing there? You know, you shouldn't be here. You know, this place is, you know, appointment only, shut down. And he starts to come towards me like he's going to like pretty much kill me. I wake up from the dream like, wow, I just felt like this was like a real place, and I couldn't shake it. I ended up driving around my hometown trying to find like along the train tracks. I found, you know, some similar places, but never ended up finding the place. But it was just as I was out there, I was like, man, what if I did find a place and uncover like, you know, a ring, like one of these articles that I found, but it was through like me just like having this dream. And I was like, man, that'd be a crazy story you could tell your friends, and that would be a crazy film. And it kind of just downloaded. And so I started working on a short film with it, sent it to some people, and like, dang, this is kind of, you know, a good way to talk about the subject, you know, in a kind of creative, cinematic, you know, intriguing way. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just developed, and then we had, you know, some actors attached to do it even as a short that were pretty, you know, well decorated and the work they've done. And then it kind of blossomed from there into like, no, this needs to be a feature film. And so within a couple weeks, I had written it as a feature, and I was like on Zoom calls with like Academy Award winning actors like that responded to the script wanting to do it. Yeah. And we started packaging the film with traditional Hollywood financing. But the thing about the way the story's kind of put together, because the story is essentially about a young man whose little sister goes missing at a local motorcycle race event, and she's never found. And 3 years pass, and he actually ends up having a dream where he has the same dream I had, and he goes to find the place, and he finds it from his dream. And the encounter takes place from his dream, and it kind of just sends him on this journey with his, you know, local friends to breaking in and uncovering a trafficking ring in their small town. And so with that story, you really don't find out what the actual issue is until near the end of the film. You don't really know exactly, you know, what. It's not like Sound of Freedom where, you know, it's like very clear from the get-go what the issue, you know, topic is at hand.
Well, yeah, that movie's based off of was it Rob or
Tim Ballard?
Tim Ballard, sorry,
yeah. That movie is that movie's more of a, you know, autobiographical.
Yeah.
You know where you're getting into type story, whereas this, like, people weren't necessarily responding to the trafficking element. It was more of just like the script, because in Hollywood it's like it's not really about anything but the script, you know. And so the story itself is what the actors were responding to. And then knowing, you know, the sensitive nature of the topic, when that kind of got more, you know, because initially it's like, oh yeah, this is great, let's do it. And then when people realize, oh, this is like a topic that can get me canceled, you know. That's what happened with Jim Caviezel. He just got all of his agents and managers dropped him when he did Sound of Freedom. He doesn't have any representation right now.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's not like, oh, just go willy-nilly, you know, go make a movie about child trafficking and, you know, your career is going to be, you know, untouched.
What, I'm sorry to cut you off. Yeah. What you said when you first came up with this, you had a bunch of A-list actors that were ready to.
Yeah.
Which actors? Can you say?
Yeah, I don't think I want to put that on blast out loud just because of. Yeah, I don't.
Sure.
I don't want to paint anyone in a negative light.
Well, it's not negative. It's just, I mean, they reached out, they wanted to do it, and then all of a sudden,
is it the actors?
They didn't.
Yeah, right. Is it the actors that are like, hey,
it's not the actors. Yeah, it's mostly, you know, when people take on pictures, there's so much influence from the agents, from the managers.
Yeah, it's their agents that are probably like, hey, this is not going to look good for you if you do this because it deals with this topic.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
And so there's 3 top agencies that if you want to look them up, you can look them up. They pretty much, and then there, you know, there's this other actor that actually is good friends with one of our actors in the film. And this other actor, you know, he's a recent Golden Globe winning actor. For Best Actor in a Series, and he loved it. He's like, didn't have a role specifically for him, but he's like, man, like this needs to get made. Like this is like, you know, you move heaven and earth, get this picture made. Like this is like something that the director from Dune can make, you know. But obviously we want to make it ourselves, not just hand over a script to someone else. And so he brought it to the agencies, and like radio silence, and that's not common. Like if someone's bringing and championing a project, someone's gonna you know take a look at it.
Yeah.
But you know, we started to realize, and then especially just hearing these interviews with the Caviezel and the producers from Sound of Freedom, you know, they brought this project with big money offers to actors to play that role of Tim Ballard, you know. With the big money offer, with the amazing heroic role in this film, nobody wanted to take it.
So you said there's, because I don't know much about how Hollywood works, or I mean I know a little bit, but you said there's three main agencies, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And so all of them,
all the actors are in those agencies.
So those three agencies control pretty much Hollywood, all the actors that are involved in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Why do you think they don't want anything to do with this topic?
Much like every power structure, every industry, throughout history, right? I mean, and it goes deeper than just the agencies. I mean, they're owned by corporations themselves.
Yep.
And so when you're dealing with an issue like this that is so lucrative and is so profitable, you know, much like the drug industry and the weapons industry, greed is the thing that really drives everything. And so that, and then there's just pure evil. You know, I mean, Hollywood. No, it's no secret that Hollywood is notorious for ruining people's lives. And you look at the child stars,
tricking out young kids.
Tricking out young kids.
You can see a long lineage of child stars and where they are now and how their lives were ruined.
Yeah, and even how it began. And the whole concept of Holly comes from a holly tree. People don't realize the whole name of Hollywood comes from this kind of a cult background. And then so it's a bigger issue than just like one person or one agency or just it's a global. I mean, you're talking about a global industry that people say it's $150 billion a year for trafficking in general, but that's just what's documented. And then you have this power structure that really throughout history, child sacrifice has been around since the dawn of time. Every age, look at even when Moses was born. I mean, they were killing the babies. When Jesus was born, they were killing the babies. It's the closest image bearer to just pure straight from the gates of heaven. God is a child, innocent child, and there's power to that. There's power to take from that.
So
the future.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You say that with the Hollywood and the even the word holly coming from a tree. Yeah. I didn't know that. I know that I've watched some stuff that is basically Hollywood like around occult stuff, and sexual and involving children. And even there's some actors that have come out and said, "Hey, when I was a kid." I was put in a robe and brought into a room and all this stuff. And there's been some videos that have come out about that stuff too that they've found.
What's crazy to me too is like how, it's really a concerted effort when, Harvey Weinstein's case comes out and that's kind of like a, distraction, because if the whole Me Too movement really was just a way to kind of control the narrative, take over that narrative and stop it and just point it all towards this,
he's the fall guy.
Yeah, the fall guy, And when in reality, the whole industry is like,
Yeah, there's hundreds of Harvey Weinstein.
They're working right now today, So, and then what's crazy too is, there really is a lot of people that support this cause that are the talent, the actors. And what's interesting is, in the process of us trying to figure out, because with with most movies made nowadays, especially nowadays, it's a lot different in the industry than it was before. But if you don't have a bankable name, a part of the project, traditional financing is just, it's like impossible to get. And that's why you see all these star vehicle crap movies, with Bruce Willis and, these movies that are literally made just purely based off of the actor being attached. It has nothing to do with a great film, has nothing to do with a story you even want to see. It's either that or a superhero film or a sequel. That's all they'll do is like...
Yeah, it's all CGI for about 2 hours, no storyline. Yeah, there's been like a very small percentage of actual decent movies that have come out, I think, in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
The rest of it is garbage.
Yeah.
It's just cheap.
It's just...
And it's just a way to like pump this out.
It will not be remembered in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And, so as I said, we were kind of looking for, who our guy could be. I started looking to who was, kind of supporting this issue, who was supporting, Tim Ballard's organization, for instance. And there was a lot of people that I found actors-wise that were following and subscribing to even like their Instagram and like shouting it out. But since that movie came out, I just went and took, a little dive to see if they were still tracking, still following that organization, and all of them, even the ones that were like our believers, not at all associated or following that, organization anymore.
Because they can't get any work after they cancel them out. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think it's the individual actors. I don't think it's the individual actors that had that thought, oh, I need to hurry up and go and follow. I think it was like, hey, you got to go and, top down. Hey, that's how a lot of things are done, and it's a very, very manipulative and just dishonest industry. Like, people will lie all day. It's all it is, lying all day long. That's how deals are made. And that's just, with what we're doing with this is like, our whole focus is to make a film that actually is amazing. For one, it's going to last, and then actually make an impact, and that it doesn't have all this other trash attached to it. Because most of these people, all it is money. Even with the subjects like this, when we had financing, they weren't really attached because that people say, oh, this is a great cause. No, it was because this actor was attached, and that's why you wanted to finance it, because you're going to make money off of it. And so if we're successful with what we're trying to do now, which is raise our budget, grassroots, kind of unorthodox Maverick style, we're going to be able to control what goes up on the screen, who organizations we're actually able to shout out, and then directing, percentage of the profits that we have control over towards those operations directly, like putting it directly, no middleman, like getting it to where it's needed. We know now just through, just all the relationships we build of, where it is needed. And, obviously you're not going to eradicate this issue overnight. We're probably not going to eradicate it at all, but even just one more kid, that would be the, accomplishment, is to just rescue one more life.
Yeah.
Is that kind of your why behind this, the whole film, like your bigger why?
Yeah. And then, I'm a believer, I'm a believer in Jesus. And so, I had always heard about this issue, but it wasn't until I had this dream that I felt like I was one of those kids. That's what I felt like. I felt like I had that feeling like, man, if I was one of those kids that's like living this, and like, what's night like? What is like, there's no such thing as a good night of sleep. There's no such thing as like, I got lost when I was a kid probably a couple times, Disneyland or at the store or big places. And just to think like, that's one thing, right? And then maybe your whole life was like that. You didn't ever have a parent. Maybe like that is the case with most of these kids in third world countries, Or maybe you are a kid that was, did have a family, and that something like this situation where you were snatched and grabbed took place, and that nightmare doesn't end with you finding your parents, 30 minutes later or 20 minutes later, but it never ends. Mm-hmm. And that's your entire rest of your childhood and your life. And then on top of the horror that takes place after that, and just thinking like, man, that is literally like the worst nightmare I can imagine as a kid who did have a good family, And so I just really got that perspective, and that just kind of like, man, I just couldn't shake that reality. I knew I just couldn't. We had other projects, even with some other production companies that, you know, when this really hit me, I was like, man, like I can't just work on a freaking movie about, you know, a robbery or, you know, I was like, no, I got to do this and put everything to the wayside until this is done, you know. It just like put everything in perspective, like, man, like what a waste of time most of these movies that come out are when like there's just so much, you know, like this, like I can't think of a bigger issue than kids.
Yeah. So this became like your passion project.
Yeah. And so I couldn't think of anyone I'd be willing to lay down my life for more than, you know, a kid, you know, like that's just like, okay, that's, you know, that's easy. Yeah, it kind of became like a call. It kind of became like the why really is like, I don't know. Why movie? You know, I kind of have thought that too in the past, like what's a movie going to do? God, if, you know, if this is what you want me to do, all right, you know, I don't know how impactful it can be, but for some reason I just have a sense that, you know, it's really going to, you know, and obviously with Sound of Freedom coming out, people see the power of story and how that, you know, because prior to that coming out, being released, you're like, I don't know, a movie, I don't know how that's going to help. But when you talk to these organizations, you talk to these people working in these operations that no one knows about, you know, very few know what they do, very few know how to help. Awareness is huge, both in the prevention of and then in getting more people to, like, you know, partner and help with what they are doing to eradicate it, not just prevent it, but, you know, fight it.
Yeah. Have you reached out or been able to be in contact with like Jim Caviezel or anybody that has been a part of the Sound of Freedom? Because I know, I mean, they seem to combat the Hollywood narrative pretty well. I mean, that movie, came out a month ago?
Yeah,
maybe?
Smoked.
Yeah. And I mean, it was all over the place, all over social media. You know, I'm sure if you follow conservative type people on Instagram, you saw like Mel Gibson was out there promoting it, Trump, Dana White, all these people were talking about this movie. So, I mean, there definitely is a way to combat Hollywood and get the story out. So, well, now that if you had been in contact with them so they could help you.
Yeah. So, yes, we have. One of our producers actually is Michael Flaherty. He's done like Everest, Holes, I Can Only Imagine. A lot of those. He was a co-founder of Walden Media, and he's actually helping the directors from Sound of Freedom on their next film that goes through Angel Studios, which is the platform that released Sound of Freedom in theaters. And we actually had our project on there in submission. You know, they have about 30 different projects at a time that are they go through their guild, and that's what Sound of Freedom did. You know, Sound of Freedom, they presented it to their guild. A 5-minute clip, and the guild decides if they want to see this picture on the big screen. And so, although, you know, Sound of Freedom,
guild is just like a group of.
The guild is their 100,000 subscribers to their app, which all pretty much comes from the Chosen audience because they made The Chosen, that TV show.
Okay.
And so, with Sound of Freedom, as a finished film, you have to have 60% of people saying they'd be very disappointed if this wasn't made onto the big screen. Didn't, and so Sound of Freedom got that 60% passed the guild, and then obviously they crowdfunded for the funds to distribute it.
Okay.
So that's what Angel does, is they crowdfund through their platform for the film to have the money to be put into theaters. Now, the film's already made, so they weren't crowdfunding for the budget. They were crowdfunding for just the P&A. Yeah. And so the guild came through, and they got it up on the big screen, obviously, and then that's how the word spread out through these hundreds of thousands of people that, you know, were already part of the inside group of knowing about it, and then word of mouth kind of just spread like wildfire. Obviously, they're on all the news stations as well. But our film also was in submission. You know, you put a 5-minute clip, and so we put that 5-minute clip on there and had just flying colors. So we got like 50% of, and when it comes to an unfinished project with just a teaser video, the threshold is 40%, not 60%. So we were like 10% above.
Nice.
So, yeah, and then we got the next film that they're doing, the directors from Sound of Freedom, we actually got double the amount of financial interest on their just on the secret platform, not on the public offering. But so that's something that we have an option for right now.
Yeah.
But I'm praying on if that's the right method, because what we want to do really that's different from Sound of Freedom is we want to have, like I just said, the freedom to choose where, if this blows up as well, like where that money's going to go, And we already have methods to get it into theaters, much like Sound of Freedom. And so, that's kind of like an option that we have. But
so in your mind,
Yeah.
You go through the guild, maybe if that's the path, right?
Yeah.
Like you crowdfund the rest, or however you finish the film, get it out there. When it blows up, what's your idea of it then to continue making movies, to go, or even before that, to take some of that money and go help?
The biggest thing that I've been told too is when people are really moved by Sound of Freedom, but most people that leave the theater are simply just being told to buy more tickets. And so many people, unless you're in the know, don't even know about our rescue. They don't know how this relates to the organizations. And when I talk to people that want to actually get involved, like go out there and be a part of rescue missions, they have no idea how to even begin that process. It's very overwhelming. Before people even dive in, they've already gotten kind of cold to even moving forward in that. Mm-hmm. So our goal, the movie Top Gun came out in the 80s and skyrocketed the enlistment in the Navy.
It's still, I think it's still the number one recruitment video or movie.
Really?
Right.
Yeah, of all time. I
but
think
with that career path, that has a clear pathway, recruiters with, established ways of getting into that. Whereas with this, it's and same thing with Backdraft, that skyrocketed amount of people are getting into firefighting.
Yeah. Did you know though? I think in Top Gun, the first one, the Navy had nothing to do. With that movie.
Yeah.
Really?
They were like, nope, because it portrayed pilots as hotshot, arrogant, this and that, and so the Navy was like, no, we're not going to have anything to do with this, and then it ended up being that it still is today.
The number one recruitment video.
Probably maybe the second Top Gun that came out definitely helped. I mean, they do a fantastic job of making it look awesome.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to join the Navy.
So is that one of your goals? Like when you make this movie, to be able to influence people to get involved and really?
Well, at the end, really, because at the end of our film, I want to have clear pathways. If people want to get involved financially, this is where to go. You don't need to buy another for instance, with Sound of Freedom, they're getting a lot of exposure, right? So buying another, if someone's moved, really moved themselves, it's one thing getting one person moved. It's another thing, having that one person that got moved do something with that besides just telling someone else to get moved with it. If someone's moved, I think that money, instead of paying it forward, they should go right to the, and there's kids being trafficked right now, operations going on right now. Tim Tebow's organization spent $70 million just rescuing 1,000 kids.
Really?
Yeah. And so it's expensive in a lot of cases. Some cases it's not. For instance, this organization out of Burleson, Texas, that we're very close with now, they rescued over 10,000 kids over 28 years.
Wow.
And not only do they rescue them, they've raised them. A lot of these kids end up being doctors, and that's the biggest thing, right? Because you rescue a kid, that's great, but they're traumatized. They are ruined in most cases. Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, especially as a believer, is salvation, getting them healed, getting them recovered, getting them restored, to being a kid again. And these guys are really good at being able to do that, and it's not just by, the power of man. In fact, this organization doesn't even have an operative team working with them up until a couple weeks ago when we got them kind of linked up with some of Tim Ballard's and Tim Tebow's guys. Now they have a little more protection. But even with this, this case of this girl I told you about, that was, the 25 grand just for a couple of days of just going after one kid, and so when you have less than 1% of children rescued, that number is way bigger than any number of box office, movie can hit, even Top Gun's $1 billion. Because when you're talking about, look at COVID, right? They spent trillions of dollars fighting COVID, and this is way bigger than COVID,
Well, let me ask this: like, as someone not in the know at all around trafficking or any of that stuff, like I would tend to think of it, is this what would you say to people that are like, is this just like a trend of everyone focusing on this one little thing that's trafficking, that there's not that many kids trafficked? I don't know any kids that are and it's like, as an American, live in your bubble. And
well, my brother actually, his girlfriend, her dad is Homeland Security over in Virginia, and we have other people that we're it's real. It's all a really big problem.
Yeah,
organ harvesting's real. It's not even a conspiracy. The people are blown away by it when they find out that it's real, but for some reason, it is surreal. It's hard to grasp, and so what's easier is to just dismiss things, right? Mm-hmm. And just to treat it like, that's not as bad as it. It's sick that people do that. I've had people comment on our stuff, so we've done interviews with people that have been trafficked, and it's just amazing like how cold some people are, that they'll dismiss and try to make less of this issue that's taking place. And you want to talk about
that's
conspiracies.
How a lot of people are comfortable and they're complacent, and they're like, well, that's not happening to me, so why would I?
Those are the conspiracy theorists, because go look at the data, go look at what our own government, go look at what
because this child trafficking goes all the way up into the White House, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the government's a part of it. Like you said, it's a business.
It's a business. It is a business.
My thought, I'm like, you can spend all this money, and raise money to rescue these kids, which is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But does that eradicate the problem? Like, my thing is, like, why are we not smoking these people in front of the street that we get caught, like, publicly? Like, dude, this is what happens when we catch you doing this. I think that should be, because it is pure evil. And the only way to extinguish pure evil is to kill them.
Yeah. I on it, like in some instances, I would disagree, but I completely agree with that. Yeah. Like, because the deal is, when you're messing with the innocence of a child, right? Pure, just for your pure gain. Like, there's not another word for it.
And you can rescue, like the girl you rescued, which is freaking fantastic, right? That you got, but they'll just go get another one. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we'll just go, you rescued 20, we'll just go get 20 more, because that's our business, and we're going to keep it going. So I feel like that is definitely helping. I'm like, dude, we should be rescuing these kids.
It depends too on, the location. For instance, in the area where that girl was rescued, the cartel.
That's what I was going to ask.
The way that these guys are doing it is very, I'll kind of just share on what took place in the last couple of weeks, which was, so about 7 months ago, I started writing this story about 3 years ago, and we've always had kind of the same ending that I won't share of the picture. But, several months ago, every once in a while I'll add kind of inspirative things to the plot. And I just really kind of felt called to add this ending piece with this younger female character in the story that was based partially off of the story I heard 7 months ago about a young girl in Colombia that was rescued out of 120 kids they rescued. She was mute, would not talk, wouldn't kind of acknowledge anyone, just totally just like lifeless pretty much. And the guy that runs this organization had yet to meet her. He's out of Texas. He's got they have I think 23 different places. So this is one of the places. And he had a dream. That's what kind of struck me. He's like, okay, he's talking about a dream. Okay. He had a dream where he, long story short, he met her. She saw him. As soon as she saw him, he said, come here, give me a hug. And she just saw him as her dad, totally just lit up, and then he said, it's okay to start talking now. And then she just started talking. Total miracle. And so he actually left his anniversary after waking up from this dream. He's like, I'm going to go see if this will happen. And so that was kind of interesting to me because, the dream, going to see if it happened kind of thing was similar to my story. So I'd heard this story. He goes, it happens exactly like the dream. And she just was totally healed from this. And it became the poster child for the organization for like the last 7 months.
Wow.
And then 4 weeks ago, she was taken by her prostitute mother and 2 cartel members, ripped out of the place screaming. And the 2 men that were, taking care of this home that they had all these kids at got their heads blown off. And they're pretty much just trying to stop them. And then boom, they just turn around and just blow their heads off and take the girl. And within like a couple days, she's just totally out of there, like been sold 3 different times. They were really worried it was this Venezuelan cartel that just came in that was very like, ugly to deal with. And thankfully, somehow we got in contact with this guy that runs this organization. My brother got in contact with him. And this is how we find out. We find out he hasn't released it publicly anywhere, but just through talking with him and kind of talking about our film, like, hey, we want to help, with the organization. We know how the good work you guys are doing. He says, yeah, well, that story you guys are talking about that inspired you, yeah, that little girl was just re-trafficked, like right around the exact same time. So it was just crazy. And then my brother's like, let me see if I can help. And so he ends up getting him in talks with some of Tim Tebow's operative guys, and conversations take place that are. I'm listening and I'm like, wow, this is insane. Like the ways they go about this stuff, and they locate where she's at within a matter of like a week. But what ends up happening is very crazily, she's not even rescued by some sort of like operation.
Oh.
The woman that was kind of like the mother of the home that she said, I just got an idea from God. What we do is we'll just throw a birthday party for her, because it was her 10th birthday when they were going to go in. No, we're just going to throw a birthday party for her. We'll somehow get the message to the guys where we know where she's located at now and say, hey, it's her birthday today. We're throwing a birthday party with a birthday cake and some ice cream. You guys can come, and then if they bring her, we'll just, see what it takes to try to get her back, And communication, that's her plan. They're like, that's insane, I don't know about that. And then, several hours later, get a picture of her, and we're like, we got her. And just like, that's how this guy does most of the rescues, though. That's why they haven't had military and security. Now they do, because more of their guys are getting killed like this now. But you just never know the method that's going to be necessary in any given situation. In certain situations, you go and you kill that one person. You're chopping off like a 10-headed octopus, and it's just going to regrow. And so in a lot of cases, it just depends. If what they tell us here in the organization here in the U.S. is they don't really want people doing the vigilante type stuff because of it's very hard to use evidence from like cases like that in court, because it's really rigged here in America, like to where it's very hard to rescue the kids, and it's very hard to then like get them recovered, and like setting up stuff like it's totally
it makes it almost impossible.
Makes it almost
impossible. And do you
impossible.
think that's on purpose?
It's definitely on purpose.
Yeah. So how could because that's exactly why they don't want vigilante justice, because that is really the only justice that'll do it.
Right.
It's like I go through the court system.
Right.
I'll go through the legal system, and nothing happens. It's a bunch of bureaucracy, and then this.
Yeah. And there's a case coming out.
Finished.
There's a case coming out where I'm from, in the Sacramento area, really soon here, that has to do with that in particular, and the child services and the family courts. and that's going to be a big one when that comes out in a couple weeks. That I was asked to speak on, but I don't want to be the person that I don't have Trump's security right now, so I'm not going to be the person for that.
You'll be all right.
But, yeah.
You'll be all right in here.
Yeah, I'll be right here. But
still Team 30A. Shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's definitely much harder in the U.S. and people don't realize how bad it is here too. It's like every couple miles there's a predator. It's you think of drugs, you think of how bad that is. You wouldn't be surprised to find out there's a druggie near you, right? But for some reason, people don't put the 2 and 2 together. That there's probably a pedophile predator within a couple miles of me. Like people don't they don't understand. It's like it's not like a word trafficking. It's like no, it's perverts, and it's you know what I mean. It's like is that really that hard for you to like grasp?
Yeah,
that there are people that want to do things to kids. I mean, it's pretty well known that's
it's also now that this society is almost uplifting perverts and
that's
glorifying it and being
what
like,
are they?
this is, and then we just talked about this on when Drago was on. They don't call it perversion; they call it woke.
Yeah.
Well,
because
that's how they do it.
Makes it doesn't sound as bad. They're like, oh, this is just woke, and it's like, no, that is perversion that you are allowing to spread throughout this country.
And that's the culture that they're breeding, right? Like, for instance, even when I was, in high school, that wasn't like applauded, and then you take it several generations back where like almost all the young men in our nation were literally willing to go overseas and die for their country. And now people aren't even willing to stand up for kids that are in their own country, and taking place right in front of them. It's just, and then, are they even men? Is even being a man like a thing anymore? Your kids go to a Christian school, and what kind of came to light for me a couple years ago as a good family friends. They had their daughters in a Christian academy as well, and became a big case because the third grade teacher was teaching the kids the book on little Tommy became little Sally, like a transgender book at the Christian school without the parents' permission. And then one of the kids ended up coming in a dress, and she only found out through her daughter after they were taking a bath and she had her hair combed back. Her daughter starts crying. She's like, "Am I going to be a boy now?" Just from seeing her reflection in the mirror with her hair combed back. And then she's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Because in school, they're," and then that was it's infiltrated every area really, and there's not. It's all a perfect storm for what they really want to do, which is destroy,
the fabric of our society. Yeah. And they, then they make it where the parents go complain at these schools, like, hey, and the school's response is, when your child is here, they're ours. They belong to the government,
right.
And you have no say in what we teach them.
But really, I think at the crux of the whole matter is a spiritual war.
Oh, for sure.
Taking place because there's no benefit. When evil takes it to a point where it doesn't even benefit itself, that it's just it's definitely evil, because there's no benefit in chopping off your junk and not having the ability to go to the bathroom normally. There's no benefit in even with this whole idea of the people that are doing this to themselves with these children. They're destroying themselves as well. They're totally destroying their minds. They're totally, destroying.
Well, it's a way that, some of the ways they persuade these kids, or these kids do it, is because they're told, oh, well, you'll be special. You're special. You're different than everybody else, but in a good way. And you're actually really a boy, or you're actually really a girl, and you just don't know it.
It's mind-washing.
Yeah, and I take it back to, this has been going on for a long time, is the whole victim status, where if you're a victim, you're put on a pedestal, and it's like, oh, it's okay to be a victim. It's okay to be like this, and then they raise you up, and that's still going on, and it's now progressed into, go ahead and chop off your junk, or do this, and don't worry about if people don't like it. You're the victim, and you're special, and kids are so malleable.
Yeah, they don't even know.
They don't know, and they're like, okay, it's insane to me, because kids do crazy stuff. I mean, when I was little, I want to be this, or I'm this, like an astronaut, or it's like, yeah, okay, but you're not really an astronaut. Right. Like, you have to work hard towards that. And
you don't even realize, I know some stories where it's crazy the stories you hear in the U.S. because they do say a lot of the cases are people that are trafficking you. And the idea that there's parents doing that to their kids here, in suburban America even, just it's like makes your stomach hurl when you hear these stories. And one of the cases wasn't a parent, but it was this young lady that I got to talk to last month, and the interview kind of started a lot of conversation on the internet, kind of went viral a little bit. But a lot of people were commenting because she was trafficked for 4 years in Houston before she was taken out of the country and trafficked, and out of the country until she was 20. But as a little kid, people were commenting, hearing this, because no one had the foresight or awareness to notice her. That's what she was saying was, no one had the idea to look for the signs. Is it kind of strange that you're kind of distant from this person that doesn't really look like you, feel comfortable with, or, there's all these signs that people can be educated on to know for when they see, a situation like this. And a lot of people's responses were, well, how come she didn't just start screaming? How come she didn't cry for help? Because, when you're a little kid and you're thrown into this, the fear and the manipulation is people don't get it. They think that the little kids are just going to go screaming for help. When
they're scared out of their mind.
Yeah. No. And it's just, so you really have to be kind of on your...
Sad.
Yeah, it's sad.
Hey, Eddie, so in deployments that you've done, have you ever done any rescue mission type stuff where you're going in specifically to rescue someone?
Yeah, I mean, we've done, there's HR, hostage rescue, but we've gone and rescued other Afghans that, commandos that have been captured by the Taliban. We've gone out on missions like that, but never for any kids. But the sad part is it's so prevalent there. It's part of their culture. Yeah. So yes,
culture breeds it.
We'd go to these meetings, with sheikhs or, whatever, these rich people that we were funding. That's a whole other thing. But you go there and they'd have little boys come in with the bells on they call them bell boys. And they walk around, they're dressed up in makeup, and they're a good, 8 years old. And what the bells do, which was explained to us, and they explained it very, matter-of-factly, and they're like, yeah, when the bells come in, we get aroused because we know we'll be having sex with those boys later. And it's part of their culture. It's just, it's disgusting. Yeah. And here's the thing, it was very hard to be around that. But at the same time, there's a case where a Green Beret actually shot and killed one of the dudes that was banging these boys. And guess what? America prosecuted that Green Beret. Wow. For murder and for violating, whatever stupid military code. And it's dude, you're literally, we are part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what our film also gets to kind of touch on, is because it does involve vigilante justice to a degree. The consequences that our own country will inflict upon that as well. Yeah. Because it's when people see that, what? How could that happen? Well, it's because, we're in on it essentially.
Yeah. We're enabling it.
Yeah, we're enabling it.
And it's disgusting. Yeah. But, now that we're seeing more and more of this in our country, you can see why we're enabling it. Why we're oh yeah, it's just part of culture. And it's no, that's not part of American culture. I thought that we held ourselves to a higher standard than that. Mm-mm. It was very eye-opening to see what the U.S. government puts up with and allows and what it doesn't. And you realize really quickly that we are not the ones standing on the moral high ground all the time. We're literally part of the problem. Yeah. But we can sit there.
And especially in film, you see all of this crap come out, just toxic for our youth, and just pretty much painting bad morals everywhere. And anything goes, and all these shows and things that are coming out really just numb people. And then obviously the porn industry is the fuel behind a large percent of it. Because people get into these things and then they go on a rabbit trail, and then this isn't enough, and so they take it further.
Well, yeah, the more you watch porn, then it's like, well, now I need to see somebody being choked out. Yeah. Now I need to see a little kid. And
that's how evil works. Evil always progresses into deeper and deeper evil. He was saying earlier, he said, when you start going wrong a little bit, it starts down the road, gets worse even further. And that's really how it works. In a lot of ways, it's been a slow, gradual thing in our country, right, where they implement things slowly, and it's like that frog, right, where just you get normalized to it. Like 10 years ago, people saying it's okay for kids to chop off their junk, everyone would have been like, what?
Well, what's crazy is I saw an article or like this headline, I think it was yesterday or the day before, with Trump. He obviously he's doing his election thing, and he said there are only two genders, and that's it.
Controversial.
That was a major headline. Trump says there are only two genders. And I was thinking, I was like, dude, if I read that headline 10 years ago,
like, why is this a headline?
Why is this even a headline? But this is where we are at in society. Yeah. We're literally living in idiocracy. Yeah. That movie was a documentary, except it's not so funny, right? We are literally getting dumber as a people, as a society, and we're accepting it. Yeah. We're like, oh, yeah, okay. And that's why I used to get so frustrated, like just even I think a year ago when people were having these conversations about transgenders and like this and that and like getting into the weeds, like, well, let's discuss why. And I'm like, we shouldn't even, this is not a discussion. Like, this is BS. These people have a mental illness and that's it. Like, you wouldn't, I mean, maybe you would. Now I think everything's off the table now. Yeah. It's like, or everything's on the table. Like, yeah, this is fine. This is normal. Yeah. And it's insane to watch. And I'm glad that, there are people out there that are taking notice and trying to reverse it. And I know it's like fighting an uphill battle. Yeah. But, so is everything else when you're trying to do something right and expose the truth. I mean, we were told, with our foundation, we're trying to get, we have the Pipe Hitter Foundation. We help active duty military law enforcement. And when they're being unjustly accused for doing their job and they're being targeted, we're trying to get reform in the military justice system. And when you go to Congress, they're like, oh, no, I'm not fighting that. The military and the UCMJ is like, you're climbing the steepest mountain. And I'm like, well, that's what it takes then, one step at a time. Mm-hmm. And but the thing is, people quit. They're like, oh, this is too much to take on. Just let it go. And that's why I feel like with this child trafficking thing, it's the same premise. It's like, well, it's already so big and it's already this. So, and that's why,
and people are going to be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
If you have.
In the end, they will.
In the end, they'll be held accountable for that, And it's just not a fight you can cower away from or turn your eye from, But it's amazing what people will turn their eye to until, it's one of their own.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah. It's once it happens to you, then it's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Now and that's really the goal of the story, is to make people feel the reality right here where we live, and that, because the Sound of Freedom is amazing, right? But it can people run the risk of people that are naive of thinking, oh, thank God that only happens over there in that jungle country, that movie's set in. But no, like when people in America realize, because we are very influential and powerful and the way of things going, when people in America really get the grasp of like, oh no, this could happen to you, if you don't pay attention, this could end up happening to you, and this is what it could be like. And this, in some cases, is what it's like, Yeah. It could be the doctor, it could be the lawyer, it could be the next door neighbor. And when people realize that it is, in a lot of cases, right next door, and it's just not talked about. It's not presented on the news. I mean, in the local news, I'm going to be probably on the local news a little later today where I'm from, but none of those stations where I'm at even said a word about Sound of Freedom, But they were talking about Barbie,
Oh, of course.
And you would think it's on all. It's even being talked about on CNN. It's talking, but where I'm at, very blue area, just will not even touch the subject. And it happens to be one of the big areas where this, is taking place. And there's a case, like I just said, coming out in a couple weeks. So it's not it's not by accident that it's being dismissed and it's being suppressed. And so if we're able to, do this the Maverick style where, Passion of the Christ, you've seen that movie. That movie was funded personally by Mel Gibson. That's why that got out, because no one wanted to release that. And everyone hated him after that made like almost $1 billion, And really, like, that's why everything kind of unfolded with him. He was pretty much pressured to the point of like going crazy, And same kind of deal with Sound of Freedom in a way, because Angel Studios is really kind of showing people like, oh wow, like we don't need Hollywood to reach the masses, and like,
which is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Butts down. Yeah.
I love that from two sides. I love that from the fact of not being controlled, right? Like, you shouldn't. We're in America. But I love that also because it's like a disruptive, right? Yeah. It's.
I mean, who comes on like all these, platforms and starts talking about the movie before it's even made. I know. But I honestly, I didn't want to do it that way. I was like, let's just kind of infiltrate secretly into the Hollywood, and it's just.
But dude, that's
evil won't let us slide.
This is the way to combat it right here. What you're doing right now is getting out, speaking openly about it, and speaking openly about why you're making the movie, and why people should pay attention and help fund.
And already bringing awareness to it just by speaking about it, So
Ben, that's why me and Eddie. I mean, literally, that's why we started this podcast. Yeah. Like, me and Eddie, we're both like, hey, what can we do, right? Yeah. Like, I only have so much influence. He only has so much influence. Like with what you have, with what's God's given, what can you do to push back against the darkness? What can you do?
You speak out.
Yeah.
And that's the key. Like, I actually yesterday I had a conversation, and I don't want to get too far into details. It's somebody that we're looking to support through our foundation. And I talked to this couple, and I was like, and they're from special operations community, and they're like, well, I just don't want to go out and speak out. And they, especially from our community, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to make it all about me, or like be, I'm the showboat talking about this. And I'm like, and I listened to them, and I was like, let me tell you something. I was like, you won't win then. I'm like, the only way you win is by standing up and speaking out and speaking the truth. And it does not matter how many platforms you do it on. You have to keep going and keep speaking the truth, because that's the only way people will listen. People these days have ADD. Everyone has it. It's due to all the social media and due to everything else. People cannot pay attention to one thing for more than like 3 minutes. Therefore, you have to keep speaking on different platforms so that those people who are like, oh, yeah, I see that, swipe, whatever, they'll see it multiple times. And then they're like, oh, shit, now maybe I should pay attention to this. I've seen this 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah. I think it's good to have both those seasons, though, because, like, for me, for instance, you have to be ready to come out and speak, and that takes a lot of you could kind of tell when someone is just talking out of the, unprepared, just out of their mouth, just out of their mouth, and just not really considering like what they're taking on. And like for me, I've held back from coming out and like because you got to weigh the cost too of like what is you're putting yourself into, and then are you actually ready to take that on?
Are you prepared?
Are you prepared? Because it's like what you do when no one's looking really that matters. Because anyone could just talk, but I look at like that story like David and Goliath, right? Like he was like getting ready. He slayed the lion and the bear when no one was looking, and he was ready when that giant was there to slay. And it's the work that you do and the preparation. Like beginning half of this year, I just spent a lot of time just fasting and praying and really. We had a $5 million financier that I walked away from taking, just based off of principle, just based off of not wanting to compromise what we're doing and the way we want to do it, and that was I felt peace about that though. I don't know why, I just felt.
But did you walk away from it because you were like? Because I know with Hollywood, they'll offer you.
That wasn't even Hollywood. That was private investment.
Okay.
And the Hollywood thing was. Another thing that, had opportunity to walk away from, just also based off of the vision and compromising.
Because you don't want them to control the narrative.
The narrative, and then having, I don't trust handing this off to someone else to make. And so it's really I go from the gut, like what I feel is right and what I feel is true to what needs to be done. And so I spent a lot of time just kind of tilling and preparing, and like to the point where we're at now, where I do feel like everything is timing. It's Sound of Freedom coming out, but some stuff that I see kind of frustrates me about that particular, because they're getting on all these platforms, all these, and it'd be amazing if they had, shout outs to like, here's where you can partner, here's what you can give, this is what some sort of educational piece in the promotion of what they're doing, of how to, partner. Like for instance, someone's asked Jim Caviezel, like, what can people do? And his response was, the thing that needs to happen now is we got to get Trump in office. That was his response.
I was just thinking and that whole movement, the Sound of Freedom, has now turned completely political. Yeah. And that's what Jim, get Trump in office and do this. It's like, and that's great. Trump is, he's stating, if he gets in office, he's going to make this one of the main priorities, right? But at the same time, it's like, okay,
this is your moment,
That's not a sure thing. Yeah. I hope he gets in office, but you should be able to focus right now on here, donate here. Yeah. Go to this organization because they are actioning it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Like Answer International out of Burleson, Texas, they've rescued almost triple, the amount of children, and then they raise them as, our rescue organization.
To me, that seems like one of the, so there's I almost see it as two parts. Yeah. First part is, and honestly, Eddie, you would understand this so much more, of planning, going in, doing direct action deals of getting a kid, getting multiples out of, and then there's the bigger, harder, long, that recovery period, or the
reintegration, rehabilitation. Yeah.
It's wild. Some of the reason I even was like, hey, come on, fly you down here, do this, is because you don't know where God's leading you. You have plans. You have plans and you take action, right? You have plans, you see a vision of somewhat, but you're always open-handed when you're moving forward to say, okay, God,
faith.
I think this, but if not, man, let me know. Yeah. In doing that, over the last year and a half, me and my wife have got involved with some of these. We had a couple, again, series of God things, meeting this couple in Athens, Greece. We'll probably have them on the podcast later this month, but they run a ministry in Athens, Greece, where him and his wife, literally get them out, but then rehabilitate them. Yeah. And they talk to me at length about the troubles of rehabilitating them, because a lot of those girls are it's so ingrained in them that they're going back to it. It really takes
a miracle,
Yeah, they're going back to it because at least they know that.
Yeah. And you can't do it, honestly, you can't do it without God. You can't fix that kind of issue without some sort of, intervention that's beyond, or it's just, they say when it happens to a child, it gets in the blood, It's a chemical reaction. It's the fear, right? Literally changes the makeup of their DNA.
Yeah. And then that's passed down generationally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a line from the film as well. But,
that's sad.
But it is true, and it's a cycle of just like what you just said. It gets passed down generationally, and that's how you create slaves. That's how slaves are made. And so it definitely takes the Almighty being involved in there. You can't disclude that reality of needing more than man's help to be able to heal and restore these children after they're rescued. And like you just said, you have friends in Greece, but there's a lot of different organizations that we want to shout out and want to be able to direct people towards. And then what's needed, that people understand where's this money going? How does this work? How do you rescue kids?
Well, that's the other thing, right? It's what organizations can you trust?
Right.
Like which organizations are really doing the work, and which ones are just a front and taking the money.
Right.
But if you have a list of vetted organizations, we'll put that in the links below when we put this podcast out, so people can look into them and donate.
Yeah, that's a 100% true thing too. Yeah, because there are a lot of organizations that you do need to watch out for.
Oh yeah,
that are, hey, how come this guy's got his own yacht now? But
they're really good at marketing. Though.
take out the non from nonprofit. And,
let me see your books. Let me see your books. If they're not showing you the books, then probably But yeah, that's definitely something that we really have just been really thinking we can do that's unique to our film, and directing that towards the end of the film.
Yeah. What I really love is like it may not be everyone's it may not be what everyone's called to, but everyone can help out in some sort of
Starbucks
way.
coffee, you can if you're gonna everyone within hands reach can do something.
Or you're a seasoned counselor and you can add, or you have
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm making a film, because that's what I'm gifted at. That's my superpower. So everyone has their own strength they could lend to.
Yeah,
you could probably lend some muscle.
I'm down. I'll be
clear.
I'll be on the direct action team, and I'll pass the kids off to the rehabilitation team.
Yeah. We all need. It's definitely it takes an army, to rise up against an army of darkness. It definitely takes an army of light to fight that war. But we're in the midst of that war right now. We're seeing that it's just begun. And that people are had enough, and people are waking up. I have people. We're putting on an event this weekend, and one of the guys, big outdoor screen guy, just decided he wanted to just put on the event just because he saw Sound of Freedom. And he's like, man, I just want to do something,
Yes,
100%. And that's the power of film,
that's
right?
The power of
like
film,
if you
touch someone's heart.
It influences people to, okay, I want to go do something. This is a problem, and I've talked. I haven't seen The Sound of Freedom yet. I've talked to multiple people that have, and it's definitely like that movie. I guess it's impacted everybody.
Started a fire,
in
the people's hearts. Yeah.
And it plays its role, right?
It does.
And maybe your role coming after it, right? Not intentionally, but coming after it. It's going to play its role and help and direct people.
Yeah, it's part of the fight.
Because like anything, especially with films, right? It's like Top Gun was huge, and that was last year. You know what I mean? So things, flicker and then they fade very, very quickly. And so, with something like this, it's got to take relentless forward motion. When our film comes out next year, we hope to keep that fire going, into the next year and into continuing efforts, but it's gonna take a lot more than just one or even two films,
Oh,
but
for sure.
When you have how many freaking superhero movies out, I mean, people can't get enough of those, So when it comes to this issue, I hope, just like I love military films, give me another military film, So when it comes to issues like this, I feel like the more awareness, the more it's put into the forefront in people's minds, the more it'll. Some people think it'll numb them to it, but I don't think that. I think that the reaction from Sound of Freedom has been that people walk away from it stirred in a way to want to do something. And
I think people are already numb to it.
People are already numb
why
to it. Yeah, it's something like this that has an opportunity to, shake
to
something
awaken
in
them.
Yeah. That's the power of story. That's what conversations here, too. The power of story is, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, the storytellers are the most powerful people in the world. And, throughout history, story has been shaping culture and society, from the beginning. So, honored to be able to lend whatever I can with this story in that way, But
no, it's awesome.
That's that's a good ending for it. I mean, it's literally the platform we have here is people and their stories. So awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing yours.
No, it's been an honor having you on, dude. I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. I think it's awesome. I think there should be more people, standing up like what you're doing and putting the word out about this child trafficking, Sound of Freedom, that made a wave.
Yeah.
But we need to keep that going.
Amen. Just trying to get the word out, man, and so people listen and they can watch the trailer that just went viral on dreamfilm.us, and they can learn more about the story, watch the vision message there as well, and then if they want to help build it there as well, that's where we're rallying together the dream team.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, we'll include all the links down below and where you can get involved, how you can help. We'll do our best to make like clear paths for everyone. Beautiful. And dude, really support your cause for it and helping these kids in the end. Yeah,
that's the end goal, man.
Oh,
amen.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, man.
All right, brother.
Just try to shoot them straight.
Awesome. I like it. Throw that in there.
Beautiful. Right on, man.
Yeah, buddy.